Hello everyone. Welcome to my channel. Eco of Life. Let's start. There's a moment most of us have lived through. Standing by a door, waiting at a table, or glancing at a phone, and the person you're expecting hasn't arrived. Quietly, you tell yourself, they're late again. Maybe you sigh. Maybe you smile because you're used to it. Or maybe something inside tightens, just a little. Lateness is personal without meaning to be. It seems small on the surface, almost ordinary, until you notice the pattern. And what's striking is that nearly everyone knows someone who is always late. Some, if they're honest, are that person. Here's what often goes unspoken. Lateness isn't really about time. Not at its heart. It's about psychology, emotion, identity. It's a quiet reflection of how someone relates to the world, to themselves, and to the weight of expectation. If you've spent much time around someone who's consistently late, you've probably sensed something deeper at play. Because patterns don't build themselves, something builds them. The truth is, chronic lateness has less to do with clocks and more to do with invisible internal ones that tick differently for different people. Some move through life as if racing a countdown. Others move as though time is a river that will always flow. So why rush? And then there are those caught between these extremes, for whom time feels like both friend and adversary. These are often the ones who are perpetually late. There's something almost poetic in the way time bends for them. They don't intend to inconvenience anyone. They don't wake up thinking, let me make someone wait today. Most are fighting a silent internal battle, one that revolves around pressure, avoidance, hope, or even a subconscious longing for a bit more space, a little more comfort, before facing what comes next. To understand them, imagine their morning. They wake up believing they have more time than they do. They move slowly, telling themselves they'll finish everything just in time. Then they remember an email, a small task. It'll only take a minute, they think. But time doesn't work the way they imagine. Their estimate is almost always off, not from carelessness, but because their brain calculates time based on intention, not reality. Psychologists sometimes call this emotional miscalculation. Estimating time not by what will happen, but by what they wish would happen. Is planning a trip assuming perfect conditions, no traffic, no interruptions. People who are habitually late often live inside that hopeful version of reality, believing the world will cooperate today even if it hasn't for the past 100. But that's only one layer. Many who are consistently late struggle with emotional transitions. Moving from one task to another requires mental energy, and for some, that shift feels heavier than others realize. For them, every transition, getting out of bed, leaving the house, ending a conversation, feels like a small negotiation, each needing a pause, a breath. Those seconds accumulate into minutes, and before they know it, they're late again. So when someone says, I didn't mean to be late, they're usually telling the truth. But that doesn't ease the social weight of lateness, which can feel like a tiny broken promise even when none was intended. Look closer, and you'll often find lateness stems not from disrespect, but from self-pressure, from overcommitment, from fear of disappointing others, from trying to do too much in too little time. Some who are always late are perfectionists, tweaking one last detail, adjusting one more thing, wanting to show up perfectly prepared. That extra care costs minutes, and those minutes cost punctuality. Others are emotional avoiders. If an event makes them nervous, they move slower, stretching the time before they have to face it, a quiet psychological buffer. Some are dreamers, pulled into ideas so easily they lose track of minutes, living more in inner worlds than outer schedules. And some are emotionally overloaded, carrying too many responsibilities, their lateness an unintended side effect of trying to hold everything together. If you've watched someone rush out the door, breathless and apologizing, you might see in their eyes a mix of guilt and exhaustion. They're trying, but time keeps slipping. Sometimes people who are always late grew up where time didn't matter much, where routines were loose and clocks were suggestions. As adults, they continue in that soft, flexible rhythm because it's what they learned. Other times, lateness is a quiet emotional rebellion, a subtle reclaiming of control when someone has grown up feeling overly monitored or pressured. For some, lateness is tied to self-worth. They underestimate how long things take because they underestimate themselves. They think, I can do this quickly, while fearing they can't. They try to do everything perfectly and end up doing everything late. Maybe you see parts of yourself in these descriptions. Or maybe you've felt the frustration of waiting, wondering why someone can't just be on time. The deeper truth is this: people who are always late usually don't value lateness. They value something else more. Comfort, calm, approval, imagination, or emotional space. Time becomes what they sacrifice to protect those deeper needs. They often live in a state of micro-optimism, believing today will be different. Traffic won't be bad. Tasks will go smoothly. This hope, while charming, becomes why they fall behind. Their relationship with time becomes a cycle. Hope, underestimation, rush, regret, repeat. And this cycle carries a quiet emotional burden. Behind every apology is self-criticism, embarrassment, frustration, and sometimes a feeling of being misunderstood, because their lateness has little to do with how much they care. Interestingly, many chronically late individuals are deeply reliable in other ways. They show up emotionally. They remember birthdays. They stay up late to help a friend. Their punctuality doesn't reflect their loyalty. It reflects their internal rhythm, not their values. But time doesn't see intention, it sees action. So they end up caught between who they are and how their behavior makes others feel. Many who are always late genuinely believe they can change. Each time they leave late, they tell themselves, next time I'll get it right. That hope keeps them trying until they understand the psychology beneath the pattern. Lateness feels emotional because time is one of the most respectful gifts we can give. It's limited and irreplaceable. When someone is late, it can feel like a tiny misalignment. But rarely is it about disrespect. More often, it's about a mind trying to protect itself, to catch up, to stretch reality, or to move at a pace that feels natural. If you look closely, you might notice something subtle behind the rushed footsteps and apologies. Lateness often reveals how someone copes with the emotional texture of life. Some experience the world as gentle steps, others as waves. Those who are late often live in waves. Moments of intensity, calm, overwhelm, escape. Their timing follows their emotional rhythm, not the clock. Telling someone to set an alarm earlier rarely helps because the issue isn't the alarm. It's the internal landscape they're navigating. For some, time feels like a race. For others, a suggestion. For the perpetually late, it often feels like a story they're trying to rewrite, hoping today will be the day it bends in their favor. Imagine someone preparing to leave. They know they need to go, but a thought pulls them in. A distraction appears. Their mind whispers, you can finish this quickly. 5 minutes pass, then 10. This drift isn't carelessness, it's emotional absorption. Time disappears because their focus is intense. Then comes the realization, I'm going to be late. Their chest tightens. They rush out, promising themselves again to do better next time. Underneath this cycle often lies an unspoken emotional belief. Some feel uncomfortable being early. It feels like wasted time, or like they'll appear too eager. They aim for perfect timing, but perfection is fragile. Others don't see minutes as units. They see them as moments, living inside experiences rather than schedules. Some are late because their days are built around survival, not structure. When the mind is juggling stress and worry, time becomes blurry. Cognitive overwhelm, not avoidance. Fear also plays a role, soft fear of being judged, of awkward moments, of disappointing someone. Lateness can become a protective buffer, an emotional shield. For some, it's a way to create space to think, breathe, or calm their thoughts before stepping into an unpredictable situation. If you know someone who is consistently late, you might also notice beautiful qualities beneath their timing struggles. They may be deeply creative, empathetic, lost in conversation, dreamers who see life in colors and possibilities rather than deadlines. Time slips because they're immersed in the richness of the moment. But understanding the roots doesn't make lateness harmless. Those who are late often feel the consequences, the guilt, the tension, the worry of being seen as unreliable. It's stressful, a constant rush of adrenaline, a feeling of always catching up. They're often not late to things that bring relief or excitement, but to things that bring pressure or emotional weight. The more an event demands emotionally, the more likely they are to delay facing it. A coping mechanism, not a flaw. Many who are late have a distorted relationship with future time. They believe tomorrow will be more spacious, that they'll have more energy, clarity, motivation. This leads to overcommitment and underestimation, a tendency psychologists call the planning fallacy. It's an overestimation of their future selves. But something shifts when they begin to see their own patterns clearly. When they realize lateness isn't about clocks, but about the stories they tell themselves, the emotional beliefs, the invisible pressures, the quiet avoidance, the perfectionism, the hope, the overwhelm. Understanding this brings compassion to a behavior often misunderstood. And compassion is the beginning of awareness. Awareness is the beginning of change. Imagine someone who's been late their whole life suddenly seeing why. The patterns, the triggers, the internal stories. They begin to understand how their mind estimates time based on feeling, how transitions drain them, how they stretch time to protect themselves or avoid discomfort. That understanding creates a quiet shift. Instead of fighting themselves, they can work with themselves. Instead of, I need to try harder, it becomes, I need to understand what makes time feel this way for me. Instead of forcing punctuality through pressure, they build it through self-awareness. They start to notice which moments make time slip. They see they rush most when trying to be perfect. They delay most when anxious. They recognize that their hopeful optimism often works against them. And once awareness enters, small changes begin, not from force but from self-understanding. They start preparing earlier out of compassion for their future self. They notice avoidance triggers and gently work through them. They tell themselves the truth. I need more time than I think. Slowly, something shifts. They begin arriving on time for what matters, not because they change their nature, but because they learn to work with it. They understand time not as an enemy, but as a partner. They stop promising perfection and start promising presence. When you understand your relationship with time, you understand a part of yourself often left unexamined. Your fears, habits, emotional rhythms, pressure points, self-beliefs, hidden hopes. And something deeper happens. You realize people who are always late aren't flawed. They're human. Their lateness reflects the part in all of us that struggles to align our inner world with the outer one. The part that wants to slow life down, to hold on to moments, that feels overwhelmed by expectations, that wishes for more space to breathe. Maybe that's why lateness is so relatable. Even if you're not perpetually late, you know what it feels like to fall behind in life, to feel time moving faster than your heart can keep up, to rush into moments, to carry quiet guilt for not being who you hoped, to overestimate your future self. Lateness is human. It's emotional. It's psychological. And it's deeply tied to how we experience the world. But no one is stuck. Not with time, not with habits, not with emotional patterns. Once someone understands the emotional meaning behind their lateness, they can begin to shift. Small awareness leads to small adjustments. Adjustments create new rhythms. New rhythms create new habits. New habits create a new relationship with time. Punctuality isn't the real goal. The real goal is emotional clarity. Understanding yourself in a way that gives you back a sense of control. Knowing what you avoid, what overwhelms you, what triggers optimism or drains your energy. Learning to be honest with your patterns, not from judgment, but from compassion. Time becomes more manageable when your emotions become more understood. For those who've spent years running a few minutes behind, there comes a quiet day, often unexpected, when they realize they're no longer living in that constant rush. They feel something new, calm, grounded. They show up on time not because they forced it, but because they understood their own rhythm. That moment becomes a gentle turning point. Not perfect, not permanent. Just a shift in the story they've lived so long. Because lateness isn't just about minutes. It's about self-awareness, emotional patterns, internal stories, the way someone moves through the world. And when someone finally sees themselves clearly, even time begins to feel different. They start living not behind the clock, not ahead of it, but with it, side by side, step by step, moment by moment. And that alignment, soft, human, imperfect, is what changes everything. Thank you for watching my video. Please subscribe my channel. For more update,